Welcome to part 6 of my Yu-Gi-Oh! Archetype Roundup. Sorry for the month-long delay in content recently. I tried to tackle a video talking about Final Fantasy XIV's revamped PvP mode, but decided it was going to be way too much effort to get out in a concise manner. So we're back to business with the archetypes. Remember to tell your friends about these videos, and let's go ahead and get started with archetypes 26 to 30. Number 26. Barbaros. Yet another example of Master Duel says this is a category, so we might as well do it. Barbaros is made up of a series of 3 monster cards. Beast King Barbaros, which either loses attack points to be summoned without tributing, or can be tributed with 3 tributes to nuke your opponent's board. King Beast Barbaros, which attacks all your opponent's monsters, can be special summoned by tributing monsters whose total levels equal 8 or more on the field, and can banish a Barbaros monster in the graveyard or face up on the field, then pops 2 opposing cards. And finally, there's Beast Machine King Barbaros who is a 3800 beat stick that can be special summoned from the hand by banishing a machine and a beast warrior from your hand, field, or graveyard, and also doesn't deal battle damage. There's not really any reason to play these cards, ever. Yeah, technically they work together, but I can make normal monsters work together with external support. That doesn't mean I'm going to build a deck around them. These guys get a 5, and if I could give them a 0 or just not include it, I would. Number 27, Batteryman. Do you like compact methods of storing electricity that may or may not be terrible for the environment? There's an archetype for that. Batterymen are a dated archetype with some solid tools at their disposal. Their main gimmick can be clearly seen in their original card, Batteryman AA. This guy gains 1000 attack for each copy of him out there on the field. With a funny little card called Inferno Reckless Summon, this could result in 3 3k beat sticks jumping onto the field way before this was the bare minimum for a deck to do. They've got some fairly strong support cards in their backline with a lot of recycling and ways to swarm the field, but they're just too dated to do much these days. They lack any extra deck presence and rely on parts of the Monarch engine to function properly, and these guys are no Monarchs. They can do good work if you want to roleplay like it's still the GX era, but you'd be better off building one of their more modern contemporaries like Deskbots. Number 28, Battlewasp. Do you like ranged weaponry, bugs, and synchro plays? There's an archetype for that. Battlewasps are an archetype made up of wind insect monsters who are incredibly good at swarming the field. Their main gimmick lies in that idea of swarming, as their effects go off harder depending on how many insects you're working with. They've got a minor theme of burn damage and attack reduction. Overall, they're a very aggressive playstyle, mainly focusing on softening up the enemy before going for the kill shot. They're fun to work with, but not extremely useful in the game these days since they lack a lot of link presence and negates, meaning they have to rely on generic support if they wind up going on turn 1. This weakness, combined with a lack of modern support, earns them a 3 ranking. Number 29, Battle Boxer. Do you like this? Oh yeah, we've got a fucking archetype for that. Unfortunately, they're not amazing. Battle and Boxers are, shockingly, a battle-focused archetype, and those tend not to do so well in the modern meta. They're very good at making powerful Xyz monsters and swinging for crazy strong hits, as well as bolstering said monsters with aggressive effects, but the deck is very vulnerable to negates. In essence, this deck is a lot like Ippo himself from the famous manga/anime series. You can charge in and insta-punch your opponents, but against more technically minded foes, you're really screwed for options. They unfortunately lack modern support, which means they go into 4, but I'd say the plays they make would put them in 3 even if they've wound up in 4. Number 30, Beetrooper. Do you like burying your enemies under a tide of biting insects or slamming down an absolute juggernaut of a bug and stomping your opponent into dust? There's an archetype for that. Despite the name, this relatively new archetype isn't just made up of bees. Their basic playmaking cards are themed around bees, but they eventually work up to powerful other insects. In their playstyle, this archetype is like a modern renditioning of Battlewasp. They easily swarm the entire field with most of the cards having some kind of special summoning effect, and they build up to some very powerful monsters after their swarming. They currently focus on links, but have an option for fusion summoning and a level 8 main deck monster that can bring banished bees back to your deck. It's kind of an insect-themed version of your standard link spam deck, but with some other options to go into than just link bosses. That said, they're fairly strong, and their bosses can swap from having strong protection to having strong attack if need be. They seem to be a very fun archetype to build and have a decent amount of power to back up that fun playstyle. Whew boy, that was a quick one. Most of these archetypes were pretty straightforward, so there wasn't much to go in depth on. That said, we have our first correction segment. Last episode I talked about how the Gradius archetype was pretty much unplayable, but after some digging it turns out that they're better than you'd expect. Yeah, they won't throw hands with fully powered Drytrons or anything like that, but they're able to hold their own in the modern game. I'd like to ask for your thoughts on these archetypes, maybe even a comment if you're so inclined, and hopefully a like or a sub if you're enjoying the content. Remember to stay cool, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.